Alright, guys, so you're welcome to today's meeting. Um, what I actually want us to look about, I just want us to continue. I want us to continue from where we stopped actually, and we are actually almost done with this. Everything you need to learn, everything you need to know to code your own shell. So we are almost done with all these concepts. I think right now we are going to discuss environment. So we're going to we're going to start from here. Environment. So that's where we're starting from. So but somebody said something on the WhatsApp group and said the difficult thing is knowing how to apply. I think said how to read the man and combine the methods to perform a task is really the trouble here. So you see, there is one thing is to know how to code. Another thing is to know what you want to code. So most of the task now, the concepts, you can learn the concept. Learning the concept does not necessarily make you a programmer or a developer. It is actually how you are going to apply what you've learned to build something that makes you an engineer, or that makes you a programmer, or that makes you a developer. So one of the things you would all constantly have to be doing is asking questions, and you need to know how to ask the right question. So you may have a difficult task, but your solution to that task begins with asking the first question. And your first question might be, what is this task asking me to do? When you understand that first question, what the task is asking you to do, then your next question is, how can I solve this task? Then you now begin to think, what are the steps I need to take to get my solution? So every bit of question that arises can further be divided into smaller questions, or less or tasks with lesser difficulty. So you can break that difficult task into simpler tasks, and then those simpler tasks will lead to your solution. So that's basically what programming is about. That's why, if you remember at the beginning of ALX program, we learned about algorithms and whiteboarding. So before the environment exercise, he said, using everything we learned so far, I said, write the first version of a simple shell that runs the command with their full path and without any argument. So they are now making you to understand that these are your possible outcomes. So they want your shell to be able to behave in this way. So you are first going to think, what happens with a shell when you open your program here, and then you are seeing this prompt. Now I'm on the root folder. You're seeing this prompt. This prompt is just there. It is waiting for you to enter a command. And by the time you enter a command, let me say cd home. By the time you enter a command, it still comes back to requesting you to enter another command. So then you are noticing that this is a loop, and that loop never ends. So your first thought will be, how do I create a loop that will never end? So that is a very simple task for you to do. If you don't know how to do that task, you could just go on Google You could open Google. So one of the things that would really help you in programming is Google. So how can I create a loop that never ends? So this is a tool. Okay, this is saying infinite loops in JavaScript. So we can continue and say in C programming or programming language, and then we go and we select sorry, I need to mute a particular mic. Okay, someone's mic is on. Please, Mr. Robert, please can you mute your mic? All right, so now we get here, right? We get here. We see different.
What are we doing today?
We just started. We're just trying to answer the question on how you can solve a task. So I said you break that task into simpler tasks. For example, you are asked to build a simple shell in this exercise. So build a simple shell. So you see the behavior of a shell, that when you enter, it's asking you to enter a command. This is printed on the screen, yes, and then it's just here and asking you to enter a command. So of course your first thought will be, how do I print something on the screen? What you will print on the screen will be your prompt. So you print your prompt, right? And then you are waiting to receive a command. So when you enter a command, the program does not end. It still comes back to that prompt and is asking you to display something. So you are now going to start thinking on what to do. You're going to start thinking, how am I going to make this loop in my own? How would I achieve a loop in a program that never dies, a program that will never end? So that's your first. You've already broken that task down into a simple question: how do I create a loop that never ends in C program? So you could look for different distance. So it's called an infinite loop. You're already seeing words, infinite loop. So you could refine your search and say, how do I create an infinite loop? So this is an example. So you can click this first example and see how. Okay, so you can read about it. When to use an infinite loop is used for those applications that accept user input and generate the output continuously until the user exits the program application manually. So now when you begin to read this thing, what happens is that, apart from the fact that you are looking for an infinite loop, then you begin to get more information on what that loop can do. You begin to get more information on different ways to get that loop out. So for example, now I said we can create an infinite loop through various loop structures. The following are this is, so you can see you can use a for loop, a while loop, you can use a do while loop, you can use a go to statement, you can use C macros. So you're beginning to see they now gave different implementations, right? They gave different implementations here. So you can see for the while loop, they just put while one is true, so while it is always true. See the do while loop, so they use this as a do while loop. So this one continues to count. So different implementations. So when you go When you do that, you see the solution to your first simple task. Then you go on, okay, now I've learned how to print a continuous loop. Of course, when you try it, you see that your prompt continues to print on the screen. So the next thing is, how do I make this thing wait for me to enter an input? So you begin to think, okay, the getLine function. So how do I put the getLine function? Where do I put the getLine function? So before you know it, you solve your next task, receiving the input, right? So once I've received the input, I'm storing it somewhere. How do I convert this input into an argument vector? Do you understand? So begin to reason. We spoke about the str talk. Mr. Robert, please your mic. I'm going to mute you from here. Okay. So you begin to think. We spoke about the string talk function. So okay, so with the string talk function, I can break this string I've inputted into smaller chunks that are called tokens, right, and form an argument vector. So then, okay, I've gotten this argument vector. How do I run it? Okay, you now thought we spoke about the exec v. So that means I need to call the exec v. So you begin to think, how do I run? How do I call this exec v? How do I put it in? So you get that answer again. You put it in. Okay, you run it for the first time. You notice that your program crashes instantly, but you get the exec v runs, but your program crashes. Then you now think again, okay, what can I do? That's where I need to call a fork, put it in a child process. So before you know it, all these simple questions that you've asked, that you've come up with, will build up to the solution of the bigger task. And whenever you come up with a question that you cannot get the solution, then it still means that you need to break down that question further into a simpler question. So the more you break it down, it becomes simple. You solve it, it becomes simple. The one that when you encounter something that you don't know about, you have Google. There is ChatGPT, right? Though they are trying to make us understand how you can use ChatGPT to learn. There are a lot of things you can go on ChatGPT. If you open ChatGPT, let me open ChatGPT here. Sorry, there's a plugin I installed for this ChatGPT that is giving me this problem. Okay, so you could come to ChatGPT with your questions. How can I create an infinite loop in C? So you can see, so it begins to give you suggestions. So one of the things is, that could happen is that you could just be tempted to directly copy and paste this, but that will not help you really. Instead, you could read. Okay, you could read what this guy is saying, read and understand it. Do you understand? Then instead of you to copy it, go to your code without looking at this, and then try to do something on your own. So before you know it, you use this tool to learn rather than this tool replacing you. Do you understand? So if you don't want to use chat GPT, that is bad. If you don't want to use bad, you could just use Google search. You will see different things that different articles you could read on those articles, and it will really be helpful. So I think that's that about how you to come up with the solution. So it's coming up with that solution that makes you a programmer. It's not the concept. A lot of people can learn concepts. You can understand concepts, but your understanding of concepts is not what will make you a programmer. It is your ability to put those concepts together and to produce something. So at the end of the day, when you are writing your CV and you are submitting, and then you are applying for a job, what they want to see is they want to see the projects in your GitHub. They want to see what you have done, not what you say you know how to do. They want to see what you have done, and you cannot do anything if you cannot put those concepts together. So learn to ask those simple questions. And then you will get to where you want to go. All right. So I believe we can continue, right? Hello, guys.
Yes, we can. Yes. Continue.
All right.